First of all, I think it's awesome what you guys are doing with the whole change the mentality concept, helping the youth of today actually change their perspective on life, changing the fundamentals of the way that we perceive life, which is awesome. Thank you guys for doing that in the first place.
These are the main topics that people believe in, and no matter which one you choose, half the world will disagree with you on that topic. And I'm sure you have an opinion about every single one of those topics. Now here's the best part. We can do the maths and work out the likelihood that you would be right about every single one of these topics. For example, you can either say that we should go to war or that we shouldn't go to war. So that's a 1 in 2 probability that you would be right on that subject. And you can say people should smoke weed or they shouldn't smoke weed. So that's also a 1 in 2 probability. Now if we take that with the war together, that's a 1 in 4 probability that you would be right about both topics together, right? So now if we work it out with all of these topics put together, you've got a 1 in 23 million chance, 1 in 23 million chance that you are right about everything that you see over here. And that's only the main topics in the world.
In my experience, the majority of people have everything figured out, and that's what they believe, and that's it, and they don't want to hear anything from anyone else, and they don't want to question it, and they believe it's wrong to question what they believe, which is a major problem. So that's like a judge. Imagine going to a courtroom and the judge says, I've already made my decision, you're going to jail, that's done. I don't want to discuss it, I don't want to hear anything from you, I've made my decision, and that's my opinion, and that's what I want to believe, finished. What kind of judge is that? A judge which won't even consider the facts, won't even dissect everything, won't even think about it, won't even consider the opposite side of things. And that is what the majority of people are doing in the world. It's just, I'm the judge, I've decided you're going to prison, and that's it. That's what I believe, that's my opinion, and don't tell me anything about it. It's for me, that's actually crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
We consider ourselves are going to be right in any part of our opinion. And that's sometimes dangerous because opinions are nuanced. They're not just like one idea. And there's another part to it is where we think an opinion is our personality. And if somebody attacks our opinion, we feel it's an attack on ourselves, which is not. It's just an idea. Exactly. And opinions change. I mean, we all know that our opinions change over time.
I love that you pointed that out, because a lot of the times, especially with changed mentality, that is exactly what I'm doing, is I'm attacking ideas. It's not a personal attack, like it's an attack on your beliefs. You can call it your beliefs, but it's not an attack on you. It's just leading you to more the truth. And once I change your mind, then that becomes yours as well. So in no way should you ever be offended or defensive or anything. You should actually be more open and engaging to it and wanting to listen, because, hey, here's something that I don't know. Here's something I don't understand. Let me examine that. Let me inspect that and see if I like it and if I can apply it to my own thing.
People think, well, there's 7 billion of us, and each of us is just this separate dust mote, like floating in the cosmos, and what the hell difference does it make what you do anyways? It's like, that is not how we're connected. It's like, you're the center of a network, and you're going to know 1,000 people in your life, well enough to have an impact on them. Okay, and each of those 1,000 people is going to know 1,000 people. So you're 1 step from 1,000,000 and 2 steps from 1,000,000,000. And we are networked, technically. That's how human interactions work. And so when you do something that you shouldn't do, it's worse than you think. And when you do something that you should do, it's better than you think.
I want some of you to be hit by the tragedy of what you're watching, because this is the tragedy of the human race. Is that you are on a planet full of billions of people and everybody feels alone, like they have no resources. And to tell yourself you have no resources or you need to meet those needs yourself is a cruelty. We're only going to be able to come into alignment when we start to meet these needs within each other, which is what I'm hoping to teach, much more so than how to rely on yourself completely.
It's really humiliating to be shaking a cup 24 hours a day and people just look at you like you some kind of little bum. I go to fill out applications for a job and stuff. They look at me, I'm not looking presentable, and then we'll call you, leave a number. But how can I leave a number when I don't have a phone? I mean, I have had people to walk past me and say, get a job, bum. And I said, wait a minute, I'm not a bum, I'm a human being. And it's hard. But after the end of the day, when people go home and everybody get on the message train, and then And then I just feel so bad that I can't be going on, you know. I'm sorry.
Researchers at California Irvine designed a really clever experiment where subjects came in and played a game of Monopoly. One subject was given twice as much money as the other subject, and they were sort of allowed to play by their own rules. So for example, they could move around the board twice as fast as the other subject. Anyway, they flipped a coin to determine who that lucky subject would be, and then they played the game. Inevitably, that initially lucky subject would win the game, and after it was over, they would ask the winner, "Why do you think you won?" Not one subject attributed their win to luck. No one mentioned the coin flip. They talked about their business acumen, this decision, that decision. And this reveals a fundamental human bias, that when something good happens to us, we try to think of all the things we did to deserve it. And we could see how this would be a problem as inequality rises.
I look like straight poo-poo, but I gotta get this thought out while it's still in my brain. So, people always, I tell the world, I'm like, I hate the world because of society. And they're like, oh, you can't blame society for all your problems. The world is the way it is, just get over it. No! I won't accept it, because guess what? Before technology and before all these fucking, colonizers and shit, it was different then. It could be different now. They've convinced us that this is the only way it could be. There's like a million, gajillion, zillion things we could have done with this planet. There's a million ways we could have inhabited it, but we were like, no, money. You work till you die, bitch. Ooh, it could be so different. Just open your eyes. Think. This, look at my vein. This is how serious I am. It could be different. This isn't the way it is. The world has convinced you that this is all that there is. We are on a floating fucking rock in space, dude. We are infinite. We can create our realities. Wake up!
What an alternative society and culture do you imagine?
One that doesn't make guns and bombs, one that's not at war with itself constantly, one that doesn't poison the air, doesn't poison the land, doesn't poison the sea, one that has enough respect for each other and the planet we live on and all the other life forms that share this planet that we live on, one that has enough respect for all of that to live in a way that's completely sustainable, that is beneficial to all of life, so that mankind becomes a symbiotic life form that's supporting the life of its host planet instead of being a parasitic life form that's devoiding its host planet of its ability to support life.
Self-awareness, awareness about other people, awareness about what's actually going on in the world is very important, because when we raise awareness, our own awareness, we understand more about the world and we make better decisions because we understand more. And ultimately, I believe that our society, there's so much shit and there's so many problems in the world, and nobody denies that. And everyone is shouting that we should fix these problems and that these problems need to stop and we need to stop treating each other so badly, but nobody understands why we're treating each other so badly. The reason why nobody understands why nobody's even asking the question why. There's a lot of problems in the world. But every time you come across a problem, you should be asking, why is it happening? Why are people doing this? Instead of just saying that it just is like that or screaming that it needs to stop, we need to try and figure out why it's happening, because then if we do that, then we can stop it.
Every movie is about conflict and about fighting the other. There's always an other in the movie.
The other. Yes, exactly.
And with all of those situations, that's why it's in the back of my mind what I'm always thinking every single time with every war and every conflict and every fight. I always think to myself, why can't they just be grown up enough to just contact each other? Hello, let's talk about this. Oh, you need that land, I need that land. Okay, let's talk about it. We both need the land. Let's make a plan. Let's figure something out. Let's discuss it like adults.
Like that. It'd be so boring.
It's insane. Like it actually is. And
but you see,
but what's even more insane is how many people aren't conscious of that. How many people don't even think of that. They completely they like, oh yeah, fights, yeah, America, you know.
I don't believe in human nature anymore. Why? Well, I've spent the last 6 years working on my mental health, so I've learned a lot about developmental psychology. And when you look at it from a psychological standpoint, you see that pretty much every negative trait that you identify as human nature can be explained by childhood or societal trauma. For instance, the idea that humans will always create a hierarchy and participate in violence and war because it is human nature. I don't know about you, but I can't imagine a 2 or 3-year-old plotting for a war because it has some intrinsic drive to do it. What I can wrap my head around, though, is that 2 or 3-year-old growing up in a society that pushes toxic individuality and teaches that somebody always has to be on top. That person adopts those traits because it's all they've ever seen, becomes president one day, and then nukes another country because of a perceived threat. It's all caused by fear, but fear is not an intrinsic human trait. It's a trauma response.
When two people have different views, then either both of them are wrong and there's some complete other truth that they both don't understand, which means they need to discuss it together so that they can realize that they're both wrong and find the other answer. And maybe when they discuss it, they discover the third answer. Or maybe one of the two has the right answer, which means if they discuss it with each other and both actually listen and are willing to be wrong about something, if they are actually willing to take in the information of the other person and to it's a way of thinking about discussions where you want to say, this person disagrees with me. Let me start by thinking, maybe I'm wrong. The only way you can find out if you are right about something is if you first accept that I could be wrong about it and you discuss it with somebody else.
And when I got to Tuamotu, the people wore no clothing, and the male of the island never stared at the female body, and there were no peeping toms on the island. Then the missionaries came, and they made T-shirts for the girls because they didn't want the girls to come in nude. And the girls put the T-shirts on, and they cut 2 holes in the T-shirt because they were uncomfortable. Can you understand that? If you were brought up in the Arab world, it'd be normal for your daddy to have 4 wives. And if he beat each one of them to teach them things, that would be normal to you. If you were brought up in China, you'd speak Chinese and you'd have your arms in your sleeves and you'd bow like the Chinese. A male says to another male, hey, look at that chick, she's well stacked. That's where the men get the ideas from, other men. They're not born that way. They tell you, well, it's human nature. There's no such thing. It's the way you're brought up that makes you react to the world around you.
You know when you're teaching a dog a new trick and it rolls over and you give it a treat? In psychology we call that positive reinforcement. Basically what that means is that the reward teaches your brain that what you did was a good thing and that you should do it more often. Like this dog that was trained through positive reinforcement to collect money from the people. The dog, now obviously knowing the value of money, goes back to its owner to buy itself a treat with the money that it made. See, now the thing about money is it really doesn't care what you did to get it. It is going to reinforce that behavior. So, you know, maybe the question isn't what do we do about the greedy, but instead, would we even have greedy people in the first place?
In our language, we have no such word as please or thank you, because it is what is expected of us is that we share and we give what we have. Today, we have to say please, we have to say thank you, we have to beg for things. In the old days, it was just a giving thing that we would share things. That was a part of who we are. And not only for Aboriginal people, I expect people all around the world would do the same things before money. But nowadays, it's mine. There are words like mine. There was no such word as mine in my culture. It is ours. It is a collective. It belongs to all of us. But today we have I, me, mine. And we don't share, we don't give.
Yes, your perspective is much needed. But if we don't heal the perspective first, we're going to perceive in a filtered perspective, in an ego self perspective, and we won't contribute at all. We'll break down, we'll destroy everything that comes in our way from relationships. If you're not healed within yourself from your previous relationship and you walk into a new relationship, you're going to break that relationship. It's already broken because you went into the relationship with a bad intent. The ego self was guiding your intention. But if you work from the unconditional perspective of it, from pure intent, from I'm doing this because it contributes to everybody around me. I am a living part of this organism, which is everything. And I have to be a constructive embodiment of this organism. And realizing that that's what we deserve. We all deserve it. But you have to realize it within yourself first. And then you can inspire it within someone else.
Much more about the way we see each other and the way we see other people in the world. our perception of other people in the world, and the way we think about other people, and the way we act when other people do something wrong or do something right, and what we believe is the right way to treat other people based on what they do. And I believe that I want to say that the mentality is warped, but I can't really claim to have the right mentality and somebody else the wrong mentality. But I do think that there's a better mentality, the better way of doing things, a mentality that will lead to better outcomes for everyone, instead of just, yeah, exactly.
Is one, everything is one, nothing is black and white. You know, we have this concept of winners and losers in life, and ultimately when you separate things like that and you create this like good and bad, you know, left and right kind of thing, it just creates conflict.
I mean, everything I'm about is saying that there is no them. There is only us. There's only us. There are no bad people. There are no good people. There's just people.
That is the key point. There is nothing that is so bad that you can't understand the person and you can't love. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely. I mean it. There's so many people that will object to it and say, yeah, but he did this, he did that, he did that. I don't fucking care. There's no reason why you can't love other people. There's no reason why you can't understand other people. And there's no reason why you can't forgive other people. And that is the only way you're going to help them to change. And that's the only way you're going to change yourself. And that's the only way we're going to save this world.
Somewhere out there, somewhere far away, I
Hi, truck driver here, noticing a lot of people ragging on that kid for noticing an obvious inefficiency in her system. As a truck driver, let me tell you exactly how inefficient the system is. When we purchase goods from China, we purchase entire ships worth for one price. The West Coast goods are distributed on the west, the east are railed out east and distributed in warehouses over here. And at some point, some capitalist on the West Coast realizes if he purchases all the goods in the eastern warehouses and ships them back west, he'll make $40,000. So he ships all the goods from the East Coast back to the West. It happens all the fuck time. And when I say all the time, I mean entire industries are centered around it. Capitalism by far is the worst system for distributing goods, period.
Humans are weird. They may not have figured out teleportation yet, but look, they made a glass orb thingy which makes their brick nest brighter. Neat trick. But then they thought, you know what would make this light bulb better? If it was worse. So in 1925, a bunch of companies literally got together in a room and decided their light bulbs should turn into dark bulbs after being used for a set amount of time. And humans were just like, well, I see no problem with this. Like, no, they don't see a problem with it. They can't see anything. I mean, what the Sure, their oldest running light bulb is still running today and has been nonstop for 117 years. But humans took nearly a century to figure out that they didn't have to keep buying new light bulbs until they die. Just don't get me started on their so-called smart telephones, man.
Do you realize this happens every single day all across the world? That is so freaking much of our natural resources that we are wasting for nothing. Do you know how many of you are wasting your lives because we are all, as a society, we are all chasing our own tails. We're like dogs chasing our own goddamn tails across the world.
Okay, somebody try and change my mind. Change my thinking that completely unrealistic, never been tried, stateless, classless, moneyless society should be the ideal utopia that we as humans should strive for. Because imagine a world where automation has created a world without scarcity, where everybody has equal free access to everything they need in order to live. But beyond that, everybody has the radical freedom to pursue whatever they want with their life, unbounded by profits or capital. They can be scholars, academics, athletes. They can still compete, but competition doesn't lead to destitution if you lose. This is the ideal utopia that we should be working towards. And unless somebody can convince me otherwise, this should be the guiding star by which we navigate. Even if we'll never reach it in our lifetimes, it's important to have a utopian vision because then we have something to aim for.
Humans are so funny because we fight so hard to like hold on to something, someone, some ideal, some belief, that we actually believe that to surrender in any capacity is weakness. And holding on to these things, these beliefs, that's what makes us strong. And I just think it's kind of backwards. Because these days I'm like, please help me surrender. Not to somebody or something else, but ultimately to truth. Like, help me surrender to truth above all else. If it means that my truth no longer applies, let it be replaced. And I know that that's going to hurt, but not more than holding on to something that is false.
As you get older, you realize that your diet isn't just what you eat. It's what you watch, what you read, who you follow, and who you spend your time with. So if your goal is to have a healthier mind, you have to start removing the junk from your diet.
And all of you can be as creative as Leonardo da Vinci if you're brought up in an environment that generates creativity. What kind of environment is that? The more you show a kid, the broader the mind. If you don't show a kid anything, if he's just brought up in Weehawken County and he never sees anything but Weehawkenites, he just has the limitations of a Weehawkenite. Do you understand that? That's where the difference comes. It's a difference of exposure. The more you're exposed to, the broader the mind. And the less you're exposed to, the dumber you are.
We are in the middle of a culture war. This is World War III. Not guns, not bombs, but words, ideas, propaganda, and ideologies. And we've been in it for years. I denied this for years. People were saying to me, there's a culture war. I said, it's an overstatement. That's hyperbole. It's an exaggeration. It's not helpful. No, it's a culture war. And it's all out. There's no rules of engagement. If somebody in the position of power in a hierarchy wants to maintain their position, they don't care if it drives certain members of the population to suicide.
But why do you care about stupid people? Stupid people, these people have power.
I've always wondered about this. Why does it seem like so many people in power are so dumb? It's like, why can't we get a better class of leaders? And I've thought about it a bit more. And I think, this is my thesis, that power is inherently anti-intellectual. Because what does intellect do? Intellect questions power. It speaks truth to power. It critiques power, and power doesn't like that. And so power has to speak to the lowest common denominator. It dumbs everything down. It's an anti-intellectual force. And that's why it seems like those in power are also the dumbest.
I'm a cop, and you will respect my authority. Ow! Ow! Maybe this will teach you to listen to authority. Ow! 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 Respect my authority. You is not listening to my authority. Respect my authority. Respect my authority. Respect my authority.
You should have respected my authority.
Yeah, that's good social distancing. Real good.
Hobby, I just like to chop up fascists. Fuck the military, ask me why the fuck we paying taxes. Yeah, we gonna eat the rich, so let's go put them in